Good evening. Welcome to Your Mental Health Matters. My name is Crystal Kelly, and tonight's show is brought to you by O.N.V. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Everybody again.
Yeah, we're back.
Yes.
And so tonight's topic, we want to jump right into man's mental health. As we all know, June focuses on man's mental health, Black men's mental health. And we just want to kind of dive into that because there's so many directions we want to go into. So where should we start? Let's just jump right into it.
Let's do Salathiel.
Yay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So, a couple things come to mind. I mean,
Yes.
I think we all know the stereotype, men don't cry, men can't show vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, that's one of the biggest issues when it comes to talking about men's mental health.
Right.
A lot of men are just taught from boys to just, suck it up, be tough, be strong. And just in my practice, I've had clients where, they've had these, traumatic experiences when they showed vulnerability as a kid, dad smacking him around because he cried, or, you know what I mean? Mom saying that's not what boys do.
That's right. Yep.
You know what I mean? And then having that fear again of, because when you start to add the cultural aspects into it too, I feel like for a lot of men of color, I've said this before, being vulnerable can also be dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's very true. Yeah.
And so you're taught to just hide all that, stuff it down. But sooner or later, it's going to come out.
It's going to come out at some point.
And that was one of the things that I was thinking of too, with the boys don't cry, and what that does is brings a lot of pressure inside, just like you said. And as they grow up, that can change into anger,
right?
Because they have no outlet, because they want to be so tough and so strong, for whoever it is they're trying to impress, whether it's dad or mom. And then boys having the pressure of being the man of the house at the age of 8, 9, 10. So what kind of pressure is that on the inside of him as he's growing up? So then you get to that point of 18, 19, young adult age,
Right.
and they have all the pressure from childhood, and now they're dealing with the pressure of trying to be an adult,
Right.
leaving mom, dad's house, and then what? Then how do you cope with those different peer pressures, life skills?
Yes.
And again, if they don't have outlets, and I'm assuming we're going to talk about that too,
Right.
they don't have outlets, that's just building more pressure and affecting their mental health.
Yeah.
And that's with anybody, not just the boys, men, and males, but females as well.
And the thing I really notice too when it comes to men in general is that they're worried. I know females as well about what other people are thinking.
Right.
You got to present yourself as like this tough person. Like you can't feel. If you do feel, you're called names. I mean,
Soft.
Soft.
That's the thing. That's the term. So where do we tap into it at? And me personally, I'm going to go back to being a kid again.
Right.
Because that's the main place where you're going to mold, a child,
That's where it
whether
starts.
boy or girl,
Right.
mold them into having good coping skills or having confidence to walk away or not listen to the name calling and what have you, and be who they are.
That's right.
Without regard to others and their opinions.
Yeah. And I think it starts there too, because, at that young age, that's where we got to start challenging those stereotypes of what it means to be masculine, what it means to be tough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Vulnerability isn't weakness.
Not even close.
I tell it to people all the time. It takes strength to be vulnerable.
Right.
That's
You know
it.
what I mean?
That's it.
It's, I think, not only that, again, there's that stereotype about men not being able to be vulnerable, not being able to cry, right? Boys don't cry. But then there's also the stereotype that when you do that, now you're weak.
Yeah.
So that's I think one of the things we got to kind of challenge as a society. I say it all the time. We got to redefine what it means to be a man in this
Come
day and age.
on.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Because so much of that toxic stuff, it just it doesn't work.
It doesn't.
We're seeing the effects in real time,
right now.
every day.
all
Right
around
now.
us. Yeah,
And
Every day.
It brings me to the topic, and I didn't know if we were going to go into this now.
Go ahead, yeah.
But it brings you to the topic of 4 young men who have been arrested just this week here in town
Yeah.
because they feel that carrying a gun, using a gun makes them a man. And I know we can get into that topic at another time. However, it's these different and negative stereotypes that the group has as far as what makes you a man. And that comes from, again, lack of communication.
That's right.
Lack of self-confidence as they're growing up.
That's right.
And again, the images that are reinforced by the media
every day.
You know what I mean? It's what they see, it's what they know. I used to, again, it's tricky being, one of the few black male therapists, in the area. Yes. So I get a lot of stories, from the young black men I work with. Right. But, again, that whole aspect of, leaving the hood, going outside of that, like going to college is like going to Mars. If I'm not going to college for sports or music or something like that, and now I don't belong to my home anymore. You know what I mean? It's, you see what I'm saying?
You look that different.
Yeah. Again, back to those societal stereotypes of who I'm supposed to be. And, I don't think no little kid asked for that.
That's true.
Right.
That's kind of forced on them. And so, and then another thought too that comes to mind too is I think, I don't think it's been said. It all starts with a conversation.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
That's it.
Being able to talk about these things with, a safe person. We always encourage people to go to therapy. Yep. And even then, the first therapist might not be the one.
And that's all right.
You might have to shop around.
That's
it.
it.
That's okay.
Come on.
I think you should. I always get a second opinion.
Yeah, I know. Right. That's
the doctor said my cholesterol was high. I went and saw another doctor. They said I was cool.
Just being smart about it. That's it.
Second opinion.
Come on.
You actually got to invest in that. Yeah. And doing those small things in your life that help you feel better.
Yes.
Connecting with others.
Come on.
Going outdoors.
Socializing. Because a lot of people in this day and age, since the pandemic, we've had an issue with socializing. Right. A lot of people isolating themselves for whatever reason. And that's not healthy for us. We were made to be connected with each other and being able to talk about our feelings. And I don't think, particularly in the Black community, I don't think we allow kids to talk enough. Growing up, it's always do what I say, not what I do.
That's right.
And I don't want to hear your
seen, not heard.
Right. And I don't want to hear
that
your
all
thoughts
the time.
and conversations and what have you. And I think that needs to change or be looked at a little more. And then also thinking about when we say boys don't cry. Right? Well, think about the fact that we have tear ducts for a reason, and it does release the pressure. Whether it's a little kid or a 50-year-old man, it does release the pressure of whatever's going on in here. If you can't talk about it at that moment, go to your closet, sit down for a minute, go by yourself, go to the park, and release some of that with the tears.
It reminds me, doing intakes with a lot of men that I've seen in therapy. One of the things they say a lot in the first appointment was, "Well, you got to forgive me. I might break down in here. I might break down. As if crying." I think about a car broke down. You know what I mean? It don't work. It don't run. It's not going to get you where you want to go. And I would tell them, it's not breaking down. You're experiencing emotion.
That's right. Don't apologize for that.
No way a breakdown.
That's right.
If you can't experience emotion in here with a therapist,
thank you.
Where else you going to experience?
Thank you. That's it.
This is the safe space.
That's
what I mean? And so,
Mm-hmm.
again, back to that. We have tear ducts for a reason.
Yeah.
We have all these emotions to express ourselves in different ways. And I feel like if all you express is anger, if all you express is resentment, then you get real good at expressing those emotions. But then I feel the other emotions get stunted.
Yes, come on.
It's hard for you to deal with frustration. It's hard for them to deal with, feeling overwhelmed, or feeling embarrassed or ashamed. It all becomes anger. You know what I mean? And a lot of people externalize it then too. It's your fault I'm angry. You know what I mean?
Put the blame,
And so then that goes back to reinforcing that I am not in control of my emotions. You made me angry.
No, that doesn't work.
Outside of you. And I know we're talking about the men, but we have to understand the audience as well. Have to understand before you become a man, you are a boy.
Come on.
Right? And a lot of those issues come from being whatever's happened in childhood, trauma or unresolved issues in the home and what have you. So I think we still need to focus on that because men that don't become men just overnight.
That's true. That's
And
right.
As I'm saying that, and I'm going to put this to Salathiel again, what do you not advise but suggest, and maybe that's the same thing, I don't know, when you have young women who are raising men, not men, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would be your thought as a older man?
Yeah, it's
With
always
children.
tricky. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of people doing it.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
come
Plenty
on.
of people out there, and you know what? My hat is off to you. You know, because I don't know how I could raise 5 kids without a wife.
Like, I'm keeping it real. Come on.
I
Yeah.
had to escape the house tonight now, but no, for real though, it's tricky because I feel like there's got to be balance. You know,
Yes,
and so
yes.
I always encourage mothers to find that male family,
Yeah,
member,
straight up.
or that male role model, a coach, or big brothers, big sisters.
Yes, great
some
program.
kind of mentor.
Yes.
You know,
As we
I
say
encourage
that.
people to do martial arts training. You know, and I'd have parents. Well, he already fighting. I don't want to teach him how to fight. No, it's not about fighting. It's about self-discipline.
There
In
you
fact, most
go.
instructors will tell the kid this isn't for fighting. It's to protect yourself and the people you care about.
Come on.
If you're using this to fight, you're doing it wrong. You know what I'm saying? You're
Yeah.
not doing what
That's
I'm
right.
teaching you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's about self-control and self-discipline. And again, I digress, but that's what I would encourage is getting them involved where they're going to have access to other positive male role models.
Right.
Because then that's the same thing. You know, there's some of these male role models
Are not
are not good role
right, and
Yeah.
that's what I was
because they're
going to
still
say.
dealing with their own trauma and
Exactly.
issues.
You
And
got to
And
be
we
able to
have
face that.
Yeah, moms and parents need to screen these people that they're entrusting with their kids. I wouldn't say just because you see one or two good characteristics that you know a person well enough to just leave your kid.
Right.
Definitely with everything that you have, your intuition and everything. Listen to it and screen the people that you choose to be role models for your kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I want to go back to when it comes to being around other men, positive, it's like iron sharpens iron,
Yes,
right?
it is.
So you got to be able to find your tribe. You got to be able to find people that you can connect to, that you feel safe with, that you can feel vulnerable with, and feel like, okay, this brother, this guy, he gets me.
Yeah. And that kind of brings me to the thinking that I feel like that's one of the solutions for some of the issues with men's mental health.
Yeah.
Is having safe spaces
Yes.
for men to talk to
Come
other men,
on.
to be around men, to express these feelings, and to not be judged.
That's it. That's it.
For it, but to actually just be there in the moment and just be supported.
Come on.
You know, because I saw a thing and the guy asked everybody, you know, how many people would go to a friend if they were struggling and, you know, having thoughts of suicide. And, you know, some people raised their hands in the audience. And then they said, okay, just women. How many women would go to a friend if they were having thoughts of suicide? Most of the women raised their hands. Then they said, okay, now just men. Like 3 dudes raised their hand, like
Ain't
100
that
guys,
something?
3 men raised their hands.
I believe
You know what I
it.
mean? And
Yeah.
so again, it shows you that there's not only that it's like a lack of support, but then there's a lack of interest in support. You know what I'm saying?
Because they view
Right.
it as a weakness, quote unquote weakness.
Yeah.
So I think being able to create some programs, some more safe spaces, you know, that kind of
Yes.
stuff.
Like talking circles.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Loving each
love
other.
those.
It was I forget it was called New Generation Warrior Training. Is what it was called. I might be messing it up, but it was a group of men that basically met, you know, a couple times a month or whatever, and that's what it was. It was a support group for men to talk about their issues, and
Right.
just come together. And I've seen it was really powerful for a lot of people that I've known.
Man.
So it was years ago, but I hope it's still around.
Come
You know what
on.
I'm saying? But more stuff like that. That's what we
Yeah.
need. More
More
programs.
of it on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
Just think about how powerful that could be for your healing, for your growth,
Yeah.
and realizing that you don't have to stay stuck.
Right.
Stuck
And-
or by isolated.
Yeah.
And think about how powerful that would be if, you know, boys grow up
Man,
not focused on toughness,
Yeah.
but focused on connection,
come
Connection.
on.
Yeah.
compassion.
Yeah, compassion.
You know what I'm
Compassion.
saying? How would that change the world?
Empathetic.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
So those are some things, some compassion, some talking
Empathy.
circles.
Yes.
What are a couple other things that some of the men could use, particularly the young adult men?
Yeah.
Because I think that's where we see a lot of the struggle is from becoming or leaving childhood
Yeah.
and then going into adulthood.
I
What
always
are
found
some of
that
the things?
an interesting age, you know, that between high school, going off into the world, you know, that 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old
Right.
age. It's an interesting age, and so much happens so quickly.
Yeah.
You know,
When you're trying to find yourself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 I always encourage, you know, some type of, well, first of all, I always say find your thing. Find something you're passionate about that you love and do it. I don't care what it is. Gardening, you know what I'm saying? Cooking.
Come on, yeah.
Whatever it is. And I also encourage some type of physical activity, period. Taking a brisk walk, you know, going to the gym, lifting weights, whatever. I mean, there's, boxing, kickboxing, jujitsu. I believe there's a martial art for everybody, personally.
Yeah.
I believe and I believe everyone should study jujitsu. I'm just saying.
So
For self-defense,
what do we
you know what I'm saying? I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I don't think people would be putting their hands on each other if everybody knew jujitsu.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It'd be a little different, wouldn't it?
A little bit.
But, you know, my thing is it's so many people there's that whole stereotype about lifting weights, you know, the muscle head, steroid junkie in the gym or something, you know. No, it's not about that. You know, lifting weights is medicine.
There you go. Yeah, great outlet.
It really is.
Great
Yeah.
outlet.
Walking, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you release these good endorphins when you have physical activity.
Right.
And I know, especially when you're dealing with depression and anxiety and you feel paralyzed and overwhelmed, it seems like one more task, one more thing to do. But those are the moments. The way I look at it is you owe it to yourself.
Right.
Come on.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's you showing up for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know, you show up for everybody else in your life.
Thank you.
Show up for you.
Come on.
You know?
It starts with that person. It starts
Yeah.
with you.
Starts with you. That's good.
So there's some things. Again, I think it's basic. Is anybody can do it. You can just get outside and walk. You don't have to have a gym membership.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You don't have to have a crowd either.
You know.
And it's always it's good to have someone to talk to.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
However, you don't always need a crowd
That's true.
to regroup yourself or calm yourself.
I would say there's a difference between solitude and isolation.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think you
Yeah.
need solitude to kind of reflect, to get your thoughts together.
refresh.
And that's for me is my walks. You know, I listen to my music, listen to a podcast, you know, a book on tape or something, and I get my mind off of my problems for the day. You know, and I take that 30, 40 minutes or whatever, and I'm just breathing and I'm just thinking about things that, you know, give me balance. You know what I'm saying? Bring me peace.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what I struggle with is, you know, not doing things for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can only take so much.
That's
you can only
right.
you can't keep breaking yourself down without trying to build yourself up. You know?
And also, if you think about how everything's connected, our mental, our emotional, and our physical. And so as Black men, you guys already know that there's different like health issues, you know, when it comes to, you know, being a Black man. You know, you think about prostate cancer. You know what I'm saying? Like
Heart disease.
High blood
Hypertension.
pressure.
high blood pressure.
High blood
yeah.
pressure, yeah.
So just think, if you don't take care of this, everything else is not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to follow suit, if that makes sense.
And I go back to too, you know, and maybe it's just me, but I go back to, especially if you got kids. You know what I'm saying? If it's just you, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying to let yourself go.
Free spirit,
But I'm just saying, if it's just you, okay, I get it. You know, just do your thing. But you got kids, it's like, man, you got at a certain point, I have to take care of myself so I can take care of them.
Come on.
Right.
You know?
And it starts with mental.
And I think about, again, the stories we tell about our parents. You know what I mean? I don't want my kids to be like, oh, my dad, he was just so angry all the time. You know, he had a heart attack at 35. You know what I'm saying?
Man, straight up.
You know what I mean?
Right.
He got shot in a road rage incident because he was so angry. You know what I mean? No, I don't want them to tell that story.
Come on. That's
you know?
right.
Or he had hypertension and went untreated for years because he was too scared to go to the doctor.
Ain't that something?
You know what I mean?
But that's a
Speaking of
real
which,
thing.
That's what we were just talking
Real
about.
talk, yeah, real talk.
Being our own advocate,
Yes.
especially for men. Our body tells us, you know, what's going on, and we have to get to a point where we can advocate for ourselves and get follow-up when something's not right. Because your body will tell. Yeah.
And I think there's, you know, again, there's that cultural aspect of it. You know, I
Right.
think a lot of people of color don't trust doctors.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
It goes
because
way
of the
back.
history.
Yeah.
It goes way back.
Come
you
on.
know, and then also, you know, I don't expect to walk into an office and see a doctor that looks like me.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, that being said, if they're going to save my life, I don't care.
I know. Come on. But I get it,
But
though.
like you said earlier, you have to shop around. But if it's an emergency,
that's
another
ahead.
situation.
That's a whole other level.
However, we need to get kind of away from that, getting to a point where we're not taking care of ourselves on a regular basis. And now that we have a problem, it's an emergency situation. And now you do have to go to emergency room.
Too far gone.
So too far gone. Now you have to do something like right now. However,
now, let's turn that back to mental health.
Ooh.
right.
You know,
Come on.
same thing happens. You know,
Right.
they end up
You
in
wait
jail
till
or in the hospital. You know what I'm saying? Because of a mental health issue that's gone on for
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's right. Being our own best advocate.
And so right now, if you guys are just joining us, we are focusing on man's mental health, physical health, emotional health. This is the month of June, and this is our topic of discussion tonight. And so we've been sharing just different ways of how to make this more of a practice in your life by listening to your body, letting go of that fear, knowing that it's okay to ask for help, and being able to face whatever those past traumas. You know, just think if you don't ever face those traumas, we were just talking, it's going to come out in an unhealthy way.
Right.
You know, through anger, violence,
Right.
you know, and that's not what we want for anybody. And so, again, this is the topic. I hope this is good. I hope you guys are taking notes because these are some nuggets right here. Free nuggets.
Yeah.
Free nuggets.
Come on. Come on. Straight
Get your
up.
nuggets here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Man, come
So
on.
why don't we mention, and it goes back to Salathiel because he's the only dude on here, right?
Yeah, he's the only guy. You know,
we
glad
know
to have you.
just by research and history that the human brain is really not fully developed until the age of 25, 26, 27. So what can we share with not just parents that are trying to guide young people into that, their 20s and 30s or what have you, but also for the young people that are listening? What can we share for them, with them, to, number one, take care of your mind, take care of your brain, you know, because that's pretty much the seat of everything else that's going to happen, like you said before. Some of the things that they should be doing to have a healthier development of their brain.
I'd say first and foremost, you know, if you are struggling with your mental health, talk to somebody.
Please.
You know, reach out. Talk to somebody. I mean, anybody. You know, obviously a trusted adult. You know, someone you trust.
Because we're not mind readers.
Yeah, right. But talk to someone.
Open up.
Start that conversation. And on the other side of that, if you feel that, you know, someone you care about, a friend, you know, coworker, family member is struggling, you know, they're being, you know, things are different. You notice something's off.
Yeah, come on.
Reach out. You know, you haven't heard from them in a while. Go get some coffee or something. You know, tap in with them, see what's going on. So I think, you know, that's definitely the place to start, is having that conversation.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
I think the other thing is, normalize it. I think that's the big thing. That's why I hate calling it mental illness. Because I feel like that normalizes illness and the pathology. I call it mental health, mental wellness.
That's it.
That's what we're seeking. That's what we're trying to get.
That's right.
I don't want to sit around feeling mentally ill. You know what I'm saying?
But if you don't take care of it, that's what it will turn into.
Right.
Is that mental illness.
Exactly.
Change the wording of it.
Yes, which, you know, again, changes the stigma. I feel.
That's right.
And again, I always encourage you know, tapping in with the doctor, because if you got some hormones out of balance, you know, vitamin D deficient, that affects your mood. You know what I mean? There's a lot of health issues that affect your mood. Simple as that. And I also feel like, again, I keep going back to normalizing it. You know, a lot of people have struggled or are struggling with the same thing.
Yeah, not the only one.
Yeah.
That's right.
And sometimes maybe they feel that way.
Yeah.
And that's anybody can feel that way
And
there.
you can't believe everything you see on social media. You know what I'm saying? And they present that face to the world because that's what they're selling, is that image. But, you know, behind the scenes, you know, they're struggling too.
Come on.
You know?
Come on.
I think about Robin Williams a lot. You know what I mean? A beloved comedian, very successful.
Straight up, yeah.
You know what I mean? And when he, died by suicide, that hit different. You know what I'm saying?
Real different.
Yeah, but it shows you, even wealthy, well-loved people
happy
struggle.
looking.
Yeah, happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a comedian. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
People struggle. You know, and so, and even then, and again, going back to normalizing, changing the wording. I don't like to say committed suicide.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, what does it mean to commit to something?
Right.
And I would argue that most of the people that died by suicide weren't all that committed toward the end, especially.
Straight up,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And again, it was a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
Right.
If they had some time to get past that problem,
That's it.
that might not have been,
That's
the action
it.
they took. So again, but while we're, if it's something that we don't talk about, then it's just going to get worse.
Yeah.
So I think we got to talk about those things.
Yeah.
We got to have those hard conversations.
Come on. And you got to be honest with yourself.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, it starts with the individual. It starts with you.
Yeah.
So if you're not honest with yourself, how can you be honest with anybody else?
Right.
So again, it goes back to pulling back those layers, being able to process hard feelings.
Yeah.
Process hard feelings in a clear mindset,
Yeah.
because I wanted to mention that unhealthy ways that people cope,
Right.
which is, basically the drugs,
Trying to numb it.
the alcohol and escapism, and not realizing that as soon as you come down off of that, your problem is still there. However, some people unfortunately get addicted,
Yeah.
to those substances, and that's a whole another
ball,
situation.
Come on.
And I don't know if you guys have been reading up on the DSM now has an official diagnosis for gaming
Disorder.
Yeah,
my
that's
gosh.
a real, that's a
That's a real
diagnosis.
thing.
Yeah.
Blew people's minds.
Yes.
But again, it's interfering with their functioning.
their life. Yes,
Yeah.
not being able to communicate with human beings,
Yeah.
number one, and then the fact that people think you can just turn it off and turn it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the game of life is not the same as the game
Yeah,
on the video
so
thing.
different.
You can't
Yeah.
push reset on that.
That's
So
right.
those are some deep things we need to talk about.
And that's stuff I think a lot of parents need to understand.
Oh my gosh.
Because they're like, oh, he's just in there
regulate
playing video games.
No.
He ain't playing Super Mario Brothers.
No.
He playing Call of Duty, blowing people's heads off.
that.
You
Yeah,
know what I'm
but then
saying?
he can reset that.
Yeah, you
and
know what I
not-
mean? But it's I've seen doctors compare certain games to like crack cocaine addiction.
Oh, yeah.
Because they get this extreme high.
Yeah.
And then if they lose, they get this extreme low. And you
Right.
see these kids rage quitting and breaking
Mood
TVs and
fluctuations,
stuff like that. And again,
Yes.
can't handle emotions, low frustration tolerance, not going to school, staying up till 4:00 in the morning playing video
Right.
games.
Affecting your sleep,
not
yeah.
don't have any friends that aren't online.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, none of those things individually are bad.
Right,
Right.
right.
But when you start putting them
Too
all
much of
together,
it, yeah.
But it needs to be regulated. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
And again, a lot of these games you'll see, I've seen 10-year-olds playing Call of Duty, and that's like, it's an 18 and up game, right? It's like a mature game.
That's the parent thing.
You know what I'm saying? So someone that was 18 had to show ID to buy this game, right? You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Very
and
true.
The gaming company don't care. They're making money.
Yeah.
Right.
You know? And so, and I get it too. Like I've had this conversation with my kids. I'm like, man, stay a kid as long as you can.
Thank
As
you.
long as you
Please.
You
can.
don't
Oh
get
my
long.
gosh.
So,
Man.
man, cut off all that grown stuff, man. You don't
Right.
need to be talking grown, acting grown,
None of
doing
that.
nothing grown folks do. You know what I'm
Best time of your life.
Real
Right.
talk. Enjoy
Yeah.
it while you can.
Yeah.
Right.
But and I think it's tricky too, just in this day and age, because so much we got so much information at our fingertips, and I think it's easy to get overwhelmed
Yeah.
for a lot of kids because they don't know how to navigate all this stuff. Their parents don't. You know what I mean? It's between social media and video games
So
and
much.
what their friends are doing online.
Oh my
Right.
God.
You know what I'm saying?
Too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And so to go back to your point, again, there's that drug and alcohol abuse, but then there's also video games. That's escapism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Escaping from the reality. And I'm constantly stimulated. I control everything.
Yeah.
Right. And then if I don't like what's happening, I reset the game.
Yeah.
There you go.
But then I get out of that into the real world
and you
where I
know
don't
how to
control
function.
everything.
Right.
lost.
I'm not being stimulated all
I'm
the time,
lost.
so I'm bored.
Right.
I'm bored. I hear that a lot.
You know what I mean?
Bored.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah. And I think it's sad to see because I love video games. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm not trying to knock it.
We're not trying to knock video games. No.
No, but it needs to be regulated.
Yeah.
It
No,
needs
it's
to
right.
be regulated by the adults
Yeah.
that are in the house.
Again,
Yeah,
I go back to alcohol. You can drink a beer and watch a football game, no big deal. But some people start drinking and can't stop.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, that's
And that's the
different.
addiction, and
Yeah.
that's what clicks
and
in their
so
brains.
again, when
Yeah.
it starts to interfere with your functioning,
Yes.
you
It's
got
a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think parents need to be aware of that and be watching it and measure. I don't think anyone should get unlimited electronics time 24 hours a day.
No.
You know what I mean? That doesn't even sound right.
No.
And that's something we can go real
deep into.
Yeah.
You're right.
So I want to wrap up tonight's podcast with just focusing on what coping skills or things that we can just give the audience, give our people, just practical things that they can do if they're just struggling, getting out of bed or not being able to focus or not being able to express how they feel. So we did mention making sure that you're active.
Active. I would say the walking and getting a trusted friend or relative to talk to.
Yeah.
Having an outlet.
Yes.
Yeah, you get that person to walk with you.
There you go.
What I'm saying?
Come on.
You don't
That's
even have
right.
to talk.
Yeah,
Just
right.
walk.
Just spend some time together. Yeah.
Listen to your body.
Definitely.
We mentioned that, your body's going to let you know if something's off. So if you're noticing stomach aches, tension, headaches, not sleeping well, listen to your body. It's coming from somewhere.
Yeah. Also, check your self-talk, what are you programming yourself to believe? You know what I mean? I tell this story all the time. I used to say, like, I'd make a mistake and I'd be like, oh, I'm a dummy. And then I stopped saying that because I'm like, what am I telling myself all day, every day? You talk to yourself more than anyone else.
Thank you.
And you listen to yourself more than anyone else all day, every day. So I started changing that script. Instead of saying I'm a dummy, I was like, no, I'm not a dummy. I'm human. Humans make mistakes.
Yeah,
so
that's reframing.
You know what I mean?
I love that.
I made myself do that every time and I stopped saying it. You know what I mean? Now it seems ridiculous to say, but that's something I used to say all the time. But I go back to challenging that script, challenging what you're programming your brain to believe.
Come on.
It's good.
And then the last thing I want to leave off with is when it comes to black men, it's okay to love who you are. Black men are strong, intelligent, and successful. This fact should not be a threat to others, but instead it should be promoted to build the positive self-image of black men. Knowing who you are, having pride in the knowledge, and being hopeful towards success should be encouraged, not diminished. So again, love who you are.
Yeah.
Walk in it, claim it, embrace it.
Yeah. No one else on this planet.
Come
just
on,
like
you're unique. And so, again, this is what we're here for. I hope this was really helpful. I hope it touched somebody when it comes to knowing that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to acknowledge, there's something off. There's something wrong. So, again, this is Your Mental Health Matters. My name is Crystal Kelly. Please join us on the first and third Friday of each month. All we can say right now, what we always say, protect your mind.
Protect your mind.
All right.